Have you ever worn shoes that didn't quite fit? At first, you ignore the discomfort, maybe it's just a pinch. But over time, each step rubs the same spot raw. The pain builds, quietly, until one day, you can't walk another step. That's what emotional pain is like. You carry small wounds from the past, words that stung, moments you never processed, rejections that left you doubting your worth. And just like the wrong shoes, those wounds keep rubbing against life until they break you open. Carl Jung saw this clearly. He didn't see pain as a flaw to be hidden or suppressed. He saw it as a signal, a message from your unconscious. He said, depression is like a woman in black. If she turns up, don't shoo her away. Invite her in, offer her a seat, and listen to what she has to say. This video is not about becoming cold, guarded, or emotionally untouchable. It's about discovering the kind of strength that comes from integration. Because nothing outside you has the power to destroy you unless there's something inside you still unresolved, still bleeding. And when you face it, when you finally stop running, numbing, or pretending to be fine, that's when everything changes. You don't need more protection. You need more awareness, more clarity, more self-honesty. This is the journey of individuation, as Jung called it, the process of becoming whole, not perfect, of owning your shadows so they no longer own you. So if you've been feeling like life keeps hitting the same sore spot, this video is for you. Let's take this deeper. Drop a comment below. What's one emotional blister you've been walking on for years? No shame, just truth. This space is for those who are ready to heal, not just cope. And if this message finds you at the right time, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You're not here by accident. You're here because you're ready. Let's begin. Have you ever wished to be unshakable? To be the kind of person who walks through life with unwavering steadiness, someone who remains untouched by criticism, rejection, betrayal, or loss? Have you ever silently dreamed of that day when the pain inside you finally fades? When you no longer have to pretend to be fine on the outside while suffering in silence within? Maybe you're tired. Tired of keeping up appearances. Tired of maintaining the image of someone who always has it together, someone who never cracks under pressure. Perhaps what you crave more than anything is simply the chance to rest, to lay down the heavy armor you've worn for so long in an effort to appear untouchable. But let me share something with you, something few people have the courage to say out loud. As long as you try to avoid pain, it will control you. As long as your strategy is to numb, to shut down, to protect, to hide, you will remain a prisoner. Not just of your own fears, but of everything happening around you. You'll find yourself held hostage by words that sting, by actions that disappoint, by silences that scream louder than words ever could. And no, this is not weakness. This is the human condition. It's just that some people are better at pretending than others. Carl Jung, one of the great pioneers of depth psychology, once said, "We are not what happens to us, we are what we choose to become." That is where the truth lies. The solution is not to shield yourself from the world. It is not to become indifferent or emotionally cold or to suppress what hurts. Real strength, true resilience comes from the courage to integrate, not escape. To bring into the light all the shadows you've been hiding. Because strength is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of self, even while bleeding. If you're still reading this, that's not a coincidence. This message is for you, the one who is tired of hurting. The one who feels emotionally outmatched in every relationship, every encounter. The one who senses that other people hold a kind of power over you that you don't fully understand. The one who is exhausted from being okay all the time. And so, I want to offer you another way. A different path. But I'll be honest, it won't be easy. You'll have to face some hard truths that may hurt. But this pain, unlike the pain you've been carrying, can set you free. Let's begin. You believe that what hurts you is out there. In other people's actions. In their careless words. In the betrayals you never saw coming. In the absences that made you feel invisible. But the truth is harder to swallow. Nothing external can hurt you unless it finds an already open wound within you. What others do to you only causes suffering if it activates something that's already there. Some unresolved part of your past. Some belief you've internalized about your own worth. Some trauma you've buried and labeled as dealt with. Pain is not born in the present, it's echoed from the past. You don't suffer because of what people say or do. You suffer because of what you believe it means about you. Because of the story you attach to it. Because it pokes at old scars you never fully allowed to heal. As Jung pointed out, what we feel in response to the external world is merely a reflection of what remains unintegrated in our internal world. That's why two people can go through the same experience. One crumbles, the other remains calm. It's not about the event. It's about what the event touches inside you. And here's another uncomfortable truth. You still suffer because deep down, you believe you can control how others treat you. You believe that if you just become good enough, strong enough, smart enough, loving enough, then maybe, just maybe, no one will hurt you. But this belief is a trap. Control is an illusion. No matter how careful you are, you cannot prevent people from being who they are. You cannot stop life from happening. The more you try to control the uncontrollable, the more tension and anxiety you create for yourself. You become consumed with trying to predict every outcome, avoid every disappointment, defend against every possible pain. If you want to stop suffering, then you must stop trying to protect yourself from suffering. What you need is not more defense mechanisms. What you need is awareness. The moment you realize that others don't need to change in order for you to find peace, that's the moment you begin to reclaim your freedom. Your liberation begins when you understand that nothing from the outside has any real power over you unless it resonates with something inside. This is the real battlefield, the unconscious. What you do not see, do not understand, and do not integrate masters you. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And that is exactly what has been happening. The pain that seems to arise from nowhere, the anger that explodes without warning, the sadness that envelopes you out of the blue, none of this is random. These are messages, signals, echoes from the parts of yourself you have forgotten, abandoned, or tried to silence. You are not broken, but you are fragmented. And the journey forward is not about becoming someone else. It's not about toughening up or pretending better. It's about remembering who you already are. It's about making peace with all of your parts, even the wounded ones. Especially the wounded ones. Because they are not your enemy, they are your map. They point you to the places in you that still need love, not rejection. They show you the path to wholeness, not perfection. So if you're tired, let that be your beginning. If you're hurting, let that be your guide. And if you're ready to stop being a hostage to the world outside, then turn inward. That's where your power has always been waiting. The work ahead is not easy, but it is worth everything. And you don't have to walk it alone. Carl Jung referred to the vast and often hidden terrain within us as the unconscious. But it's not just a foggy realm of forgotten memories or abstract thoughts. It is a powerful, active force, an entire internal system of memories, traumas, unmet desires, fears, and emotional imprints. It's the part of you you've spent years trying to avoid, dismiss, or suppress. But no matter how deep you try to bury it, it continues to shape your feelings, decisions, reactions, and the way you experience the world. You might wonder why certain words cut so deeply, while others brush them off like dust. Why does a casual comment unravel you inside? Why does silence feel like abandonment? It's because these experiences are touching wounds within you that are still open, still alive. And if they're still alive, it means they were never truly confronted. They weren't healed. You didn't sit with them. You didn't give them a voice. Instead, you swept them under your psychological rug, hoping they'd go away. But here's the truth. They didn't go away. They're still there, and now you trip over them again and again, each time a little harder. Jung once said, We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. And yet, what have you been doing all this time? Judging yourself, repressing yourself, silencing your inner experiences, trying to move on without actually dealing with anything. As if that would solve it. As if ignoring pain would somehow lead to healing. But the unconscious doesn't vanish just because you refuse to see it. It doesn't evaporate in the face of positive thinking or surface-level solutions. Instead, it becomes more clever, more insistent. It finds ways to show itself through toxic relationship cycles you keep repeating, through self-sabotaging behavior that you can't seem to stop, through anxiety that creeps in just when things start going well, through anger or sadness that appears without warning. This isn't bad luck. It isn't random. It's your unconscious knocking no, screaming for you to wake up. But still, you sleep. You say you want to be someone who no longer gets hurt. Then stop running away from what's inside you. As long as you are unaware of your unconscious, you are not free. You are a puppet of your emotions. A slave to every trigger, every word, every silence. And the more you try to protect yourself from external pain, the more vulnerable you become to the internal pain you never resolved. But there is a way out, and it's not about defense. It's about integration. Becoming untouchable doesn't come from building walls or perfecting your emotional armor. It doesn't come from repeating affirmations or numbing yourself with distractions. It comes from facing your darkness with honesty. It comes from making peace with the parts of yourself you were taught to hate. Most people believe that to stop getting hurt, they must close themselves off. So they build emotional walls, wear masks, and develop a tough exterior. They say things like, "I don't care anymore," or "nothing affects me now." But the truth is they're still bleeding inside. They're still corroding from within. Their pain hasn't disappeared. It's just been buried. Because the real issue was never the feeling itself. The real issue was not knowing what you were feeling or why. And this confusion only happens when we are disconnected from ourselves. Jung's wisdom strikes deep when he says, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but when touching a human soul, be just another human soul." And that human soul of yours, the one you keep hiding behind that strong, composed, invulnerable mask, it's begging to be seen. To become emotionally strong has nothing to do with being cold. It is not about ignoring your pain, avoiding conflict, or pretending that nothing gets to you. True strength lies in integration and bringing to the light everything you once buried in the dark. You do not become untouchable by becoming numb. Because once you embrace your shadows, your insecurities, your fears, once you stop projecting them, they lose their power over you. No one can weaponize what you've already made peace with. When you integrate the parts of yourself that you once tried to hide, you stop reacting to life. You begin to respond with awareness. You become someone who observes, who chooses. You're no longer tossed around by emotional storms, you are grounded in your own center. That is real freedom. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are. Not what others expect. Not what you thought you needed to be loved. But what naturally emerges from the union of opposites, light and shadow, ego and unconscious. Individuation is not a process of perfection. It is a process of integration. You do not need to become better. You need to become whole. Here's the secret no one told you. The more you run from pain, the more it chases you. The more you try not to be affected, the more fragile you become. But when you finally face your wounds, when you stand before yourself and accept everything that is beautiful and broken, noble and shameful, nothing outside can dismantle you anymore. This journey takes courage. The courage to look inside. The courage to drop the masks. The courage to feel fully, honestly, without judgment. Because inside your pain lies your key to transformation. You were taught from an early age to fear pain. You were told that crying was weak, that vulnerability was dangerous, that strong people don't suffer. So you learned to avoid, to suppress, to distract. But pain doesn't go away when ignored. It shapeshifts. It digs tunnels inside of you. It turns into anxiety, apathy, sudden rage, and destructive patterns you can't explain. And one day when the pressure is too much, it all collapses. But that collapse is not the end. It can be your beginning. Because in that collapse, something new becomes possible. Honesty, healing, freedom. So the next time you feel pain, don't run. Sit with it. Listen. Ask what it's trying to show you. You might just find that what you thought was your greatest weakness was your deepest doorway to power. Let's dive deeper. And this time, without fear. Carl Jung saw suffering through a radically different lens than most of us. To him, pain was not a problem to be solved or an affliction to be avoided. It was a messenger of the soul, the alarm of the unconscious, and perhaps most profoundly, the language of the self. In Jungian psychology, the self represents the totality of who you are: your conscious identity, your shadow, your hidden potential, your wounded inner child, your higher natural of it. And when your life begins to crack, when the surface starts to shatter under the weight of pain, it's often the self reaching out, trying to get your attention. Jung said, "Depression is like a lady in black. If she appears, don't push her away. Invite her to sit down, offer her a coffee, and listen to what she has to say." But that's not what we do, is it? No. Instead, we run. We silence ourselves with distractions. We drown out discomfort with noise work, entertainment, busyness, scrolling. We numb the ache with addictions, both obvious and subtle. We pretend we're fine. We convince ourselves that if we just stay productive enough, connected enough, entertained enough, we won't have to listen to the deep silence calling from within. But here's the truth. Suffering only hurts this much because you are still at war with yourself. You haven't yet learned to listen. Inside you, there is a battle between two forces. One part of you longs to grow, to expand, to evolve, while another part clings desperately to the known, to safety, to the illusion of control. The self wants transformation. But the ego, frightened and rigid, resists. And it is in this exact friction that suffering is born. Because growth hurts. Letting go hurts. Cutting toxic ties, shedding outdated beliefs, allowing false identities to die, all of this is painful. It is a kind of death, a mourning. But it is also the beginning of something sacred. Because in the wreckage of what was, something new begins to stir. It is in these moments when everything collapses, when your defenses fall, when certainty dissolves, that you are finally able to see your true self. Without the roles, without the performance, without the carefully constructed persona. In that raw space, stripped of armor, suffering becomes sacred. Because it has brought you to your knees, not in defeat, but in surrender. And from that surrender, something powerful can emerge. Authenticity, wholeness, freedom. Jung deeply understood that suffering is not a glitch in the system. It's not a punishment, nor a failure. It is part of the process of becoming who you truly are. Pain isn't the end of the road, it's the invitation to begin the journey of individuation. But most people never make it. Most people turn back the moment the road gets dark. They flee to the surface, back to old habits, old distractions. Back to the illusion of safety. But not you. If you've come this far, it's because a deeper part of you is ready to cross the valley, no matter how dark, no matter how lonely. And on the other side of that valley lies the greatest freedom you've ever known. Now, let's talk about the journey itself. Few people truly begin the process of individuation. Fewer still have the courage to see it through. Why? Because this path offers no comfort. It gives no guarantees. It does not stroke your ego, it dismantles it. Individuation, as Jung described it, is the process of becoming your true self. But that also means unlearning who you thought you were. It means questioning the identity you spent your life building, the one shaped by society, trauma, survival, and fear. you start to realize that you are not your achievements. You are not your trauma. You are not the image you created to be loved, accepted, or respected. That image, that persona was a survival strategy. Necessary, maybe, but limiting. Because surviving is not the same as living. And individuation is life's invitation to move beyond survival. During this process, the unconscious begins to rise to the surface. All the repressed emotions, the hidden memories, the disowned parts of yourself come knocking. Jung said that the persona social mask is a mask of collective convenience. To discover what's beneath it, you must be willing to tear off your own skin, metaphorically speaking. And it hurts. But it's also where true strength is born. Because once you've faced your monsters, looked into the eyes of your fear, your shame, your neediness, your Rajan said, "I see you and you no longer control me," something changes. You are no longer reactive. You are no longer ruled by what others think or say. You don't need to be right all the time. You don't need to be loved by everyone. You don't need to appear perfect or powerful. Why? Because you know who you are, and no one can take that from you. This is what real emotional strength looks like. Not an arbor that keeps the world out, but a center of clarity that no storm can shake. Pain may still come. Loss may still sting. But it doesn't break you. You remain intact not because you are untouched, but because you are integrated. You are no longer a puppet pulled by unconscious strings. You are conscious. And consciousness is the greatest shield of all. But make no mistake, depth comes at a cost. One of the costs is loneliness. Not the kind where no one is around, but the kind where very few can walk with you. Because most people are still on the surface, clinging to illusions, afraid to feel. And when you begin to free yourself, some distances become inevitable. But these distances are not a rejection, they're a sign of maturity. You're not walking away from people out of pride. You're simply no longer able to shrink yourself to fit into the roles you once used to hide. That's not ego. That's evolution. And so we arrive at the final revelation of this journey: consciousness as protection. Nothing, no philosophy, no spiritual belief, no relationship, no career will protect you from suffering if you remain unconscious of what happens within you. The words will still hurt. The losses will still devastate. The rejections will still feel like abandonment, unless you awaken. And awakening isn't a one-time event. It's not a flash of enlightenment that solves everything. It is a daily choice. The choice to look inward. The choice to feel what's real. The choice to take ownership of your inner world even when it hurts. Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." You've spent your life resisting. Resisting your fear of not being enough. Resisting your grief. Resisting your own voice. But now, here you are. And if you're still reading this, then maybe, just maybe, you're ready to stop resisting. Ready to accept. Ready to transform. You do not need to become someone else. You do not need to be stronger, smarter, or more spiritual. You just need to be you fully, consciously, courageously. And that, finally, is what makes you untouchable. The emptiness of rejection. The pain of loneliness. The anguish of not feeling seen. But what did you do with that? You hid. You silenced yourself. You tried to control everything. You tried to be perfect. You tried to be strong. And all of this has brought you here exhausted, tired of fighting against the world and against yourself. But now you know, true emotional immunity is not hardness, it is clarity. It is not about creating armor, it is about expanding your awareness. Because when you understand your triggers, your patterns, your wounds, the actions of others lose the power to destroy you. You still feel, but you don't drown. You still suffer, but you don't lose yourself. What shields you is not protecting yourself from life, it is diving into it deeply. Those who live on the surface get hurt by any wave. Those who dive know that there is silence, stability, and power down below. And that is where you're headed. And when you start to live from that place of integration, presence, acceptance, the world may try to knock you down, but it no longer finds where to hit you. If this video touched you in sentence ends abruptly, let me know if you'd like to complete it.